I'm willing to say he's the basement coach of the year.
It's 2 games. They got to get something rolling.
This is the Sports Saga podcast, and it is presented by Al Dias Electric. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. Brady Kudo here with Keegan Hamlet. Tired Keegan Hamlet, watching the Celtics lose.
Horribly.
CRAIG Costa is with us as well. Those of you in the southeastern Mass area know all about CRAIG Costa, an indie circuit wrestler and a local firefighter. So thank you for your service. Craig, how are you?
I'm good. I'm nice to be here. Both you guys. How you guys doing today?
I'm good. I'm really good. Keegan's tired.
Yeah.
I will keep bringing that up.
Still living the dream.
All right. In all seriousness, let's get right into it. So, Craig, obviously, you've been wrestling now for over 20 years, and I'm happy that you're on here today because this is another stem of sports that we want to grow into. We talk a lot about football and we talk a lot about basketball, but a branch I want to get into is combat sports, wrestling, UFC, MMA. So I think you're a perfect start. So let's get right into this. Craig, how did you get into wrestling? Like, what made you want to start doing this?
I was brought up in the 80s, so I looked at my superheroes basically like your Hulk Hogan and your Randy Savages, and loved it as a kid. You know, fell in love with it probably big time around like 84, 86. My dad would take me a lot as a kid, always wanting to be that. And then eventually, right out of high school, there was a school in Fall River. Actually, before that, right out of high school, the first school was in New Bedford, run by a brick house, Mike Baker. That's where it all started in like 95. So that's where my first training began. So came from childhood love to open shot to let's give it a shot. That's how it began.
Now, we're going to keep on this local train here. We saw a good friend of yours, Mr. Teddy Goods, recently had his opportunity on national television on a Friday night SmackDown. Did you ever have a moment where you thought, hey, I could really make something of this? Or did you ever have that shot like Teddy did? Or were you just more like, I like where I am?
Right.
Keep going.
Right now, I like where I am. Right now, I'm 45 years old. My passion is still fire when it comes to this. I love it very, very much. Back maybe 15, 20 years ago, I thought I was going to really get into it and go. Life happens. Kids happen. Kids times 3 happen. Now times 4 happen. Careers change. So like you said at the beginning of the interview, I'm also a full-time firefighter. I've been a firefighter paramedic for 16 years. That's my career. So I ended up being a full-time Somerset firefighter and a professional wrestler on the side. Some bodybuilding shows sprinkled in between. So full testosterone nation over here. That's it.
If you could tell. Yeah. Keegan, I'll jump to you.
Yeah, so after you were done with like your little wrestling spot, like little wrestling career towards the beginning, what made you want to transition over into firefighting? Because those are two completely different things.
To be honest with you, as a child, I grew up wanting to be a firefighter and wanting to be a professional wrestler.
Wow.
So I ended up going to paramedic school and getting my ticket about 2004, I think it was. And then from there, I worked some part-time jobs and I got on Somerset Fire around 2005, 2006. From there, my hours are different. I work 24-hour shifts. So I work 24 hours on, I have 2 days off, then I work 24 hours on, and then I have 4 days off, which it's good and it's bad. The good, it leaves you some availability to get some wrestling. The bad is when you come to work with your injuries, it's tough to say, I was in a casket match last night, and I'm sorry I can't make it to work. Chief's not a huge fan of that. So that kind of was frowned upon as we went forward. But that's kind of how it went. And then the balance went on and on from there. So I'm still going at it.
Were you actually in a casket match, or were you using that as an example? Because if you did, I want to hear the story.
Sorry, me and Brandon Webb had a casket match. I don't remember the year. I don't know. I'd say 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Okay.
It was one of the matches. Yeah, you could probably do some research on that. That's a YouTube match. That's a fun one. It ended with me lighting my face on fire and me winning the interstate title for the second time. I think it was.
Oh boy.
Still your hero.
So actually, funny you bring that up, face on fire. What do you think is the craziest thing you've done?
In wrestling?
Yeah.
Wrestling, craziest thing. The matches themselves, you mean like wacky matches?
Just at some point where, what's the point you go back to the locker room and you're like, that just happened, or I just did that. Like I decided not, I shouldn't say you decided to have your face lit on fire. I mean, you technically did in the back. But what just made you like, all right, we're doing this? Like, that's crazy.
I don't know. I'm not a real reckless guy. I've never been more of a, you're not going to see me doing a moonsault or anything crazy like that. I've always been a body guy and more of like a muscle guy. So I didn't do anything reckless. Chair shots, table stuff, outside bumps and ladder matches, cage matches, stuff like that. Those have all happened. But I mean, reckless bumps we call, like I don't really have any crazy story of, I tore my bicep in the ring. There's injuries, but I guess one of the craziest ones is I was in a 6-man tag in Altoona, Pennsylvania, I think it was. And Jake the Snake was our partner. We had to physically wake him up in the locker room. He wasn't doing as well then. So we kind of had to get him going. Now he's doing a lot better, but then it wasn't doing great. So that was kind of something. But other than that, you know, hasn't been any crazy. If you're looking for bump stories, I'm not your bump guy. I'm not doing any.
You're not a it's a good example. John Moxley.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, let me climb 20 feet and jump. Like, all right.
Nope. No, I'll wear a boa, look like $1 million and press slam.
No, he does it the right way, Brady. He does it the right way. It's all muscle, no like hidden tricks or whatever. He does it the right way.
Yeah. So your character again, the one, all right, I'll share my story now. I said I had a story earlier. I've been to your home promotion, Top Rope Promotions right here in Fall River. I've been to one show. I went, what were we, 2022? I went about 6 years ago, right? It's a Christmas gift. It was the Spindle City Rumbles. You had about, what was it, 60 people? Yeah. The two rings.
Two rings.
Madness. All right, so we went in. My family knew you were going to be there. Nobody else knew because that was a big return. Like, oh my God, Craig Costa's back.
I see. Nice.
So that day, we were like, oh, everyone's like, Craig. I'm like, Craig.
Yeah.
So that day, we had learned. Actually, one of my, like, I was into it when I was younger. My dad was into it for years. We had learned that a man from Yonkers, New York, named Tommy Dreamer, was going to be at that event.
Yeah.
I got to meet Tommy, really nice guy.
Tommy, still going.
There's a guy, I actually think it was Brandon Webb. No, I lied. It was not Brandon Webb. It was Ryan Waters had come out. He cut a promo. And issued an open challenge. Tommy comes out, cuts a promo. They do a match. They come out, and I'm front row, right? It's at the PAL,
right? Oh yeah,
right in Fall River, right? So you know, it's what 200 people there. I'm right in the front row. Beautiful, right? So I come up. Ryan's against the barricade. I'm like right there. Tommy looks at me, goes, and he holds Ryan. Nice. Like upright. I'll use a notepad. He holds him upright like this. And he looks at me. He goes, slap him. So I went. Wasn't very hard. I was 10. I was a little thing. I still am. But it was really cool. Like, oh, Tommy Dreamer told me to stop it. It's a cool story. Like, you know, I'll never happen again. I will say, Keegan, have you ever been to a Top Rope Promotions, or do you stick to TD Garden? What's the?
Yeah. I stick to TD Garden. Like, obviously, like you're talking about wrestling and MMA and all that. Like, that's more of my dad's kind of stuff. I'm more like major sports around here, more New England team-based sports.
Okay. I get Craig, as honestly, I think you're one of the more passionate Celtics fans I know.
Oh yeah, I'm not happy right now. with the tournament, but
All right. So the obviously again indie circuit for over 20 years. That is I think sports entertainment and wrestling, it's one of the more like again, I'll beat the dead horse. It's probably the most competitive, tough industries to get into. So you take it someone like like someone who's been on the indie circuit. How do
get to the,
people manage? What is it?
like, how do people get to the bigs? How do people
How
work it up?
I don't know, how do people get to the bigs? How do people manage wrestling in Pennsylvania in one night and then Maine in the next? Like, what is that? What is that life like?
Well, there's there's your WWE and there's your AEW. That's your top shelf tiers right now. And then from there is Impact and some other federations. And then there's indies all over the United States. A lot of these guys, there's different levels of guys. There's guys like me that are doing it honestly just for love right now. I have no intentions of getting any higher. I'm completely content with where I am. Completely. There are guys now trying to make it. So what they do is they promote themselves and they go all over. I have friends out there. I just wrestled Anthony Green maybe 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah,
right?
he's had a couple.
He's
shows
awesome.
up there.
Great. And that his ass off right now speaking. He's in California working the in circuit over there. Again, putting himself out there. You need to promote yourself. It's sacrifice. You're gone. You know what I mean? And it's different. It's not contractually signed, at least in indies. It's not, so there's not a lot of insurance and it's a difficult, very difficult life. So, it's a sacrifice that you make. It's different. It's not like college sports to your, AA, AAA majors. It's not, or a farm team, I guess, it doesn't.
Right.
So a little bit different. But other than that, the indies circuit, I feel, is a lot more intimate with fans than you can have at any WWE event or whatever. Like, you can meet the guys before the show, whether it's getting an autograph, whether it's getting a t-shirt, whether it's just interacting with them. And now with social media, it's even different. You can interact with these guys. There's a word in wrestling that we've used for years. It doesn't exist anymore. Have you heard the word kayfabe before?
Yes.
Okay. Now it doesn't. It's tough. You know what I mean? Like someone like The Undertaker did his entire career in gimmick, meaning he never really was out of, whether you saw him at the airport or at the bank or wherever, he was black on black. He wasn't interacting. He was very you know what I'm saying? Nowadays, he's someone with a weird gimmick, and you'll see them online and they're, playing with their kids, and then they come out, and then they're throwing fireballs. You know what I mean? It brings the wrestling is different. There's stories involved. It's not just a fight. And there's chemistry to each match. There's psychology to each story. You want to have a story build, and the blow off explode and blow people's minds. You know what I mean? The same thing as a show. There's a lot to it that people really don't understand behind it. They think it's like a choreographed thing, but behind the scenes from beginning to end, there's so much to it. It's crazy.
That's why I enjoy when I was big into it, the documentary series. It was called 24.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those I've seen.
I really liked those because you saw, I'll put it this way. I'll always remember this. Undertaker was doing an interview and he said that 23 years his career, he broke character once. It was after a match and it was to kiss his wife.
Right.
Like, that doesn't happen. You know what I mean? So he was just, you talk about Taker, he just literally ate, slept, and breathed.
Character. It's character development. And with creative freedom, which you have in the indies, hopefully you can create, because you need to speak. You need to cut a promo. You need to have my view is a little different. I still like guys looking a little bit different. I want them to look almost, I don't know, different than a 14-year-old kid, which kind of is in main events now. At least that's my attitude. It's difficult for me to see someone like a Darby Allin, who I love and respect, that the kid's awesome. But have you seen that match like he recently had? He did that crazy spot off the ladder into the chairs.
I've seen him do some stuff. I'm like,
now this couple of weeks ago, he was working with Jeff Hardy, and he did this crazy spot. It was awesome. off the ladder, outside of the ring, onto chairs. Dude, I'm all about doing that spot. But after that spot,
I'm done.
That's done. It should be done. That should be done. You shouldn't get up, do a little bit more. Like, you know what I'm saying? Why is the Jeff Hardy Swanton worth more than that? You know what I mean? I don't like that. And when it comes to storytelling, I don't like that.
You're a fan of when it gets to its height, when it gets to that jaw drop, end it there.
Depends. It depends. Every story could be different. But if it's something extreme like that is a spot that's going to be probably remembered. That's a really scary spot. Like
Right.
a scary, how that's not the end of a match. I don't know. Takes away from things to me, it's just a different way,
That makes sense.
but yeah, the next, you guys got to get to a top rope show. The next one we have is actually this week. It's in Middleborough. It's at the middle school in Middleborough. I'm not positive where it is, but it's,
Is there one in Brockton coming up soon, or am I?
there was just one in Brockton.
There was just one.
Middleborough, it's this Friday. I know it's at the middle school. I can't remember the name of it. And then soon we'll be doing them in New Bedford again, back in Fall River again, and we'll do the circuit through. So I'll be back soon.
Good. So actually, one last question, Key. I don't know if you have anything, but I have.
Yeah, you want to go first, and I'll ask my last
All right.
question.
So you brought up Jake the Snake earlier. I found a video, and then we can expand on this, of you wrestling Tony Atlas.
Oh, I've worked with Tony quite a few times. Yeah.
So who would you say is probably your most notable opponent or partner? And like, what was that like? Like working with someone who you watched growing up. You took Jake the Snake, Tony,
Right.
like.
At this stage, a lot of the guys who I've worked with, one of my favorite guys I've worked with is his name's Tom Brandy, and he was the Patriot, and he was also Salvador Sincere. He had a USA gimmick going when I was still really going with the Firefighter gimmick, and we've worked together. He was probably the most I've worked with, and he's a great guy. Other than that, in matches, like it's the guys that I've worked with at the stages of their career are almost at a level of retirement. So they're still working, but it's not like these amazing matches. The cool thing is, like, I remember I tagged with like Tito Santana once, and he was my tag team partner, and I was managed by Jimmy Mouth of the South Heart once, and being on shows with like Ric Flair and Roddy Piper, and meeting guys like that, meeting Piper and having conversations with like Ted DiBiase, and just meeting those guys along the way. Is the stories that I have are great. And it sucks because in this growing up in the business, like years ago, it was kind of frowned upon to ask the guys the names for pictures, right? So you're not going up to Ric Flair and saying, hey buddy, hey, because you're a worker, you're not in the back. It's kind of frowned upon. I'll tell you, one regret that I have is I wish I grabbed some pictures of being with these guys, because it's a really cool thing. I have like one with Scott Hall.
I was gonna ask you to tell that story.
Yeah, he was. Well, that was actually a funny story. I have two stories that I'm going to tell that are intertwined with my wife, which is really cool.
Oh boy! All right.
And one is I was picking him up for a show. I picked him up at Logan, and we went. I don't remember where, from Logan to somewhere, but it was like a 2-hour delay. So we were in traffic. We went out to eat. So I'm hanging out with Scott Hall for like 2 hours, which was hysterical. Awesome. But Scott Hall is my wife's favorite. So
he was my mom's favorite.
There you go. So I'm driving home, and I'm calling my wife on Bluetooth, and she's answering the phone. She's like, hello. And what do you think he says?
Hey, yo.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah. So my wife's like, oh my God. My wife is a big supporter of this. I retired from wrestling 3 years ago or 2 years ago or whatever the hell it was. But my last match was at the Eagle. It was against Teddy. So Teddy retired me. And at the end of the match, I cut my promo saying goodbye. And I said, if I didn't give you any memories along the way, I have one more left. And I called in my fiance at the time and my kids, and I dropped on the knee and I got engaged. So that was awesome. So that was probably my favorite moment in the ring with my children and my wife. And that was it. So fast forward 2 years later, I'm wrestling again. happily married, and I'm not full time, but I'm gonna do it till I can. I know I'm 45 now, and I feel as though I don't want to get 2 steps down the road and realize that I still got a little left in the tank now, and resent anybody or anything for it. So I'm not doing anything reckless. It's not going to be a crash and burn. I'm going to go out when I want, but I'm not done yet. That's how that's going. So
Yes, you still have that motivation. Just keep pushing forward. That's what you gotta have, right, Brady?
yeah,
The
Keep moving.
Tom Brady of New England wrestling.
yeah. So,
All right. That's gonna do it for us. Craig, very, very nice to talk to you. We again, we're gonna have to check out a show and do this again. For Craig Costa and Keegan Hamlet, Brady Kudo here, signing off. If you liked what you saw today, please consider liking this episode and subscribing to us. Follow us on social media as well, using the link tree in the description below. And remember one thing: bad times don't last, but bad guys do.